Everybody. So yeah, we are gonna basically what happened was I figured out that I like to be able to type in like point one, but if I type in point here, well, what was happening was that it would get rid of it and all that. But I did fix it, but I did sort of a one-off fix where I just I set up some code, manually set up some code in a couple of places to make that happen. And I thought it would be a good idea instead of saying, where like in this example, validate fog near, where I just say if the current, like if it failed, because it would be something other than none, but it happened to be a point, then go ahead and just not override it, because this is the code that does that basically. It's just to say if the previous validation was good, then go ahead and override it. But I don't want to do that if there's a point, because I want to be able to type in point and then one and then have point one as a value. Now the thing is, if I do like a search on this point and basically I have like 4 instances of it, which is not that big of a deal, but it could get out of hand. It would be better if that point, like let's say, then I decide, oh, I think I should be able to have a bracket or something like that, um, or some other value, then uh, maybe it would be nice to have a list of things that um, instead of just hard coding it all. It'd be nice if this was just referencing a list. And I've already kind of come up with this sort of scheme where if you give this thing a path, then, if you say, hey, it's a scene and it's fog and it's near, it'll give you a token back. And then I have dictionaries that you can um, store information by that token. So in both cases, the type of validation this has is, well, one is an array with just one thing called invalid position. So I would like to also say, hey, if it's an invalid of positive float, then these are the exceptional values that you're allowed to have. Um, that you're allowed to have. And so I think a good name for that would be like overwrite exception. Exceptions for, I already have the 4 token dictionary. And so basically I'm saying that if you pass it in a positive float, that it is okay to return. It's okay, or you should not override it if it has a decimal point in there. That's what this dictionary is supposed to do. And then we have a function that we can kind of emulate, like get validation text for token. I could say get exceptions, get overwrite exceptions for token. So just to put it another way, basically you give this a token, which is just going to be um, the validation token, and it's going to give you a list of things that it's okay to return. And this thing is not going to return, it's going to return a string of strings. So this is going to allow that. So basically, all I'm going to do is, if it is this dictionary, I'm going to go into this dictionary, and basically, if it's anything other than invalid positive float, what I'm going to do is return, I'm going to go return an empty string. But if it is that, then I'm going to return an empty string array basically. But otherwise, what's going to happen is it's going to return an array with it's going to turn an array with that in there. So an array with just a decimal point in it. So that's cool. So that's really neat. I'm trying to quit saying so much. I noticed that in my last video I just started going crazy saying and I don't know what provoked that in me. And it's like kind of like not particularly annoying, but it gets annoying. And every single time you do it, it gets more annoying. So I'm trying to stop that. So here we are. We are at this. This is the code that does updates. So basically, we have an additional problem here, and that problem is that we actually don't know what the token is for a given path. So we will need to do that first. But in the meantime, before we do that, let's do the lower hanging fruit. And we are going to go to the validate. Validate fog density. And this is lower hanging fruit because we actually pass in the validation token. And so, and I think is that an array that we pass in? Yeah. So we pass in an array of them. And get the value, we get the previous value. Validate value for tokens. Okay, so we've abstracted that. So I send it a whole set of tokens. And so basically, let's go ahead and loop over the value of tokens. So we'll end up needing to do this one too, needing to const is overwrite exception. We're going to say, we're just going to set that to false. We're going to default it to false. And then we're going to say, just so that we're not going too far, we're going to say, we're going to just move this logic truth. This is for fog density. Oh, that should be a let, not a const. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. It's snowing for a lot of people. Today is November 26th, and there's some crazy snow out there. All right, so let's just make sure that works. So basically, we will know that if we go and we get a fog density and we put a dot in there, yeah, it doesn't go away. So that's good. So now let's say it's always good to like kind of test it. Just test your logic a little extra. So now if we put a dot, yeah, it just replaces it. But if we were to put a minus, oh wow. Oh, that's because it's getting overwritten as part of setting the, I guess when I set the scene to negative, ThreeJS must kick back a 0, or maybe I have some other code that's, but basically it's being negatives being written through. I'm not capturing it on the update. So, but so that means sorry about the word that I'm trying not to say. So basically, what I want to know though is for all my tokens, is this a validation thing? So, but I guess for now, what we could do is we'll actually just write the code out here. It'll be a little easier. Oh gosh, I can't believe I just did it again. All right, so I'm going to loop over the validation tokens. So validation tokens dot for each. And what we're going to get in here is edit. A token which is of type validation tokens or validation token types. And that, so that we will say see current value. So if current value, okay, so basically though the thing is the skip values. So I'm going to say const exception values is equal to this dot, was it get? No, validate, it's a service. This something service, validation service. Validation service dot get overwrite exceptions for token, and we're going to give it our token. And so what this is going to do is this is just going to return, since it's just going to return an array of the exception values, the things that we should skip for. And now we're going to iterate over those. Or actually what we can do is say, we can be fancy. We can just say, well, let's just do this. If, and then we'll make it fancy. Exception values dot has contains, what is it? At get every fill find. Oh, I guess we can say find. I could have sworn. Let's see, ChatGPT. Do is the JS operator for arrays is it contains? No, I think that returns true if the value exists in the array. If passed in. Includes. I always get that one wrong. Includes. Current value. So basically I'm saying if it includes that, then is override exception is equal to true. All right, so that should do it. And be a little bit more generic. So let's just try. Let us try. Exception. Dot. Nope, that didn't work. Let's see. So we'll do a little bit of debugging. Density dot. Let's see, so we don't get in here, right? Do I have a logic issue? Oh, I do. Okay, so override exception, if it's not equal to none, oh, and not that. Okay. If it's not an override exception. So let's see. Okay, so that is working. Basically, this is very generic. Let's see where we at on time. So we're at 17 minutes. That's not good. Not good at all. I don't think I've said the dreaded word for at least 4 minutes, so I'm happy about that. I almost did it. So, what next? So what's next is, oh, okay. Before I do that, let's just make this a little bit less code. And just do this. Control X, Control V equals. I'm only doing this because I want to break this out into its own function, and I think that logic will be a little bit easier. Okay, so, oh wait, nope, that actually will not work, because if there was more than one and the second one was false, it would overwrite that. So this is a one-way gate. It only does it. It will only set it to true. It can never once it's set to true, it's going to go through everything, and even if other ones are false, it'll stay true. If any one of them is true, then it stays true. Okay. So but basically what I want to do is pull this into its own function. And that accepts a validation set of validation tokens, and then I can use the same thing in all 4 places. Now, for validation of fog density and validation of fog near, I have the tokens easily available. I did it again. Validation tokens. So it's really easy to pass the validation tokens. Over in the part where it actually writes to the data, I do not have that. So I will have to retrieve that information for these things. And maybe there's probably a better way to do it because I set up the fields, and maybe it makes sense to, when I set it up, also set up the specific sub for that field. What would be nice about that, what's not nice about that is that right now all the fields are all set up in the same place. Uh, but what would be nice about it is that I don't have to retrieve the tokens. I already have the tokens. So like if la 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 la. So when I set up the form controls for fog density and for near, at this point I can also set up these subs, this these subscriptions for those two, and I already have the fog density. The other thing, which is really not bad, is I could also do that up there, and I could get the validation tokens for like for these paths, right? For scene fog and fog density, and then scene fog and fog near. And that's just a one-liner to get that, and then I keep all those things together, all this subs together, subscriptions together. So I'll probably decide tomorrow whether I want to start pulling the subs out. I think I probably do want to pull the subs out because I think it's is starting. Another kind of trend that I saw in a lot of jobs is where they make sort of a generic function that creates these things, these controls. And I always frowned upon that because it just makes it so darn abstract. But now I'm really starting to see the value of that, because in the show space and time application that's coming in 2025, I probably will have enough information to generically build out the forms, and that means all of these sorts of things can also be done when the form item is taken out. And I don't really like that sort of abstraction, but I can kind of see the major benefit to it. So that's that, and happy coding, everybody. Bye.